So hopefully this is only a temporary setback for a major comeback. They're hoping one thing. I can assure you, when Chris Bosh developed his, no one thought that this was going to force his early retirement.
Shannon Sharpe reacts to Wemby being out for the remainder of the season. Check out what he had to say, and then I'll come back with my comments.
Also, Ocho, since he's being shut down, he's going to be ineligible for winning Defensive Player of the Year because he won't meet the mandatory minimum of at least 65 games.
Right.
Tough luck.
What you thinking?
I have a question.
Yes.
How are they able to diagnose how much the severity of the issue is, and they're saying it's not comparable to what
their hope?
What Chris Bosh
they say
had?
their hope. Their hope is more in line to what Brandon Ingram dealt with, and not with Chris Bosh. Remember, Chris Bosh tried to play again. And it reoccurred because normally when you have blood clots, Ocho, you have to take blood thinners. That's something that you stay on for the remainder of your life. So there's a problem because the clots, you take blood thinners, you don't get clotting. So what does that mean? You get a nick, you get a cut, you could bleed out.
Yeah, the thing is, the way that the Spurs are portraying it, it's like, Wemby's going to be okay. So I hear what Ocho's saying, to where they're making it seem like all is well with Wemby. He'll take the rest of the season off, and they're not trying to make it like a Chris Bosh situation. I know blood clots are different for most people, for all people, depending on where you get it. So Wemby got it in his shoulder. Not sure where Chris Bosh had it, but evidently it was a career-ending blood clot situation for Chris Bosh. So at the end of the day, best of luck to Wemby. But the Spurs and the NBA, they were quick to kind of address this, and, hopefully all is well with Wemby. But a lot of people that suffer situations like this, they may not be able to play in their individual sport. So wishing the best for Wemby.
So there's always that. There's always that scare. Probably I think you'll have a greater chance of a heart attack or something of that nature. My grandmother was on blood thinners because she dealt with clotting, and she ended up having a leg amputated just above the knee. And but like I said, Ocho, she was on blood thinners for the rest of her life, and that's normally, if I'm not mistaken, Serena Williams dealt with blood clots also. So it also depends on the severity where they are. You start getting them in your lungs, and boy, woo, you got something to deal with. Any place of a blood clot, Ocho, could be a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, and I'm doing some research now as I watch this video. So it looks like Chris Bosh had multiple blood clots on one side of his lung. So again, it all depends on where you get the blood clots. So hopefully Wemby is good. Maybe that's why the Spurs are saying, you know what, we have high hopes that all will work out. And by that clot being in the shoulder, that may be the best case scenario. Brandon Ingram had a similar situation in his shoulder, I believe. Took the rest of the season off and won most improved. So again, best of luck to Wemby. We don't want to see him on the sidelines. Hopefully he can safely resume his NBA career.
But they're saying their hope is more in line with what Brandon Ingram dealt with. He missed the remainder of the season. He was able to come back when most improved. Hadn't had an issue with it since. Not like Chris Bosh, what eventually led to his early retirement.
Now, one of the things I do want to ask you, being that obviously I'm not a health expert, I don't really know the background when it comes to things like this. Is this something that's hereditary? Does it just happen that regardless of age?
Clearly he's 20. He's 21. Chris Bosh was probably 30?
Yeah, 30.
So my grandmother was within her 60s, when she dealt with.
So.
Yeah, I don't think it matters about your age. Maybe it could be hereditary, but things like this just happen. Again, it's happening with Wemby. He's 21. Happened with Bosh in his early 30s. Believe he was maybe 32 or 33. Brandon Ingram, mid-20s. And even Shannon Sharpe, his family member, was in her 60s. So it don't matter. Blood clots, they don't discriminate as far as how old you are. If it happens, it happens. You just hope wherever the clotting is happening, it's in a place to where it won't be fatal. So again, best case scenario for Wemby, and hopefully he can fight this off.
So, Ocho, without really knowing, I mean, that would be something that you'd have to have a health expert to be able to, someone in cardiothoracic medicine or something like that, to be able to give you a more of a detailed look. What do they think led to it? Is this something that is hereditary? Ocho, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, here, what seemingly is a 21-year-old healthier male.
Yes, sir.
And boom, like I said, Chris Bosh was probably 30 when he got it. My grandmother was in her late 60s, early 70s when she got it. So I don't really know the rhyme or reason. Serena Williams got it.
Yeah.
She was in her 20s. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, chat, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Serena might have had it in her lungs, or had one in her lung or something. Maybe it was a calf, or I'm not sure. But people get them in a variety of. Sometimes they get them in their thighs. Sometimes they get them in their arm. They get them in their lungs. I really don't know.
Right.
Yeah, and again, it all depends on the situation, on where it's at. But we all hoping for Wemby to make that speedy recovery in a timely fashion. The NBA, they don't want a situation to where something happens to him on the court. So maybe after 8 or 9 months, by the training camp, by preseason, we'll see how far Wemby has come. But the Spurs are going to take all precautions. They've been known for load management, so think about this situation. You may not see Wemby for the entire season next season, even if he is medically cleared to resume play. So you got to walk on eggshells if you're the Spurs, and especially the NBA. They don't want any crazy situations that happen on the court. That was the fear with Chris Bosh. Like, you had it in your lungs and you may have been cleared by a doctor or two, but the Heat doctors, they weren't clearing them. So
it's really hard to understand. Some things are hereditary. I'm not necessarily certain that blood clots are something that aren't hereditary.
Ain't no telling.
Right, and that's tough. That's tough for him. That's tough for the Spurs. That's tough for the fans, obviously, in San Antonio. Hopefully, I'm hoping for a speedy recovery for him, and he's able to come back strong next year and continue to dominate in the way he has so far since he's entered the league. A phenomenal talent, very good, and prayers to him and his family as well.
Yeah. I think Serena, because I think it happened at Wimbledon. I think she stepped on a piece of glass or something. She was celebrating her victory. I think I could, like I said, this probably been 20 years ago. So I'm just going off the top of my head, maybe even long. I think it was like 20 something years ago, and she ended up getting a blood clot, if I'm not mistaken, in her lungs. I think that's what happened, Ocho. Like I said.
Yeah, based off Google, I'm seeing that she had multiple clots in her lungs. So she was one of the lucky ones to where that's like one of the locations you don't want to have it in, but she was able to resume her tennis career. So just seeing all the examples like that, it really depends on the individual. Wemby's tall, lengthy, so I don't know if that's going to affect him long term or whatever the case may be. But again, Serena Williams had it in her lungs and she was able to play. Maybe that's why the Spurs, they have high hopes for Wemby and he'll be able to resume play just based off other players that have had it in their shoulder and they were able to resume play as well.
Hopefully, like you said, Ocho, thoughts and prayers go out to a speedy recovery for Wemby. 21 years old, such a bright future in front of him. So hopefully this is only a temporary setback for a major comeback. But you really, like I said, they're hoping one thing you didn't know. I can assure you, when Chris Bosh developed his, no one thought that this was going to force his early retirement. You just never know.
Yeah, I was surprised during the whole Chris Bosh era with the Miami Heat going back and forth with the doctors. Once they said he was cleared after, a certain amount of time period, I thought he was good to go. But again, you don't want to have a situation to where a player collapses on the floor or you cleared him to play and then he succumbs to that same issue. So it's just a lot of money on the line. I know people may not want to go that far with it, but this is the business of basketball. This is the business of anything. If you got an employee that's hurt, sick, or something that happens, you're going to make sure everything's good before they go back to work, basketball, whatever. They just got to make sure he's good just to avoid any potential lawsuits from the family. And you just never know with situations like this. So again, Wemby, take your time. I know he's like the face of the NBA. LeBron James about to retire soon. So the NBA, they're actually hoping for the best as well. They want him to be healthy as soon as possible. They need that face for the NBA. Luka's solid. Anthony Edwards is solid, but I think Wemby is the perfect face for the NBA. But again, I hope all is well. And just bringing it back to basketball and the Spurs, they may have an opportunity not to play good, get a high draft pick. I've been seeing rumors that the Spurs may draft Cooper Flag depending on how they finish in the Western Conference. They just got De'Aaron Fox. They were excited about the pairing of Wemby and Fox, but now if the Spurs, lose a lot of games, it's unfortunate. You want to make sure Wemby's okay, but, if you get a top 10 draft pick and able to get Cooper Flag, this could work out for them just as far as, upgrading their roster. So, again, best of luck, Wemby. Get better soon, but the Spurs, they may have an opportunity to get a high draft pick in the 2025 NBA draft.